I wanted to make this quick video to talk about some of the life lessons that I'm drawing from scripture and observing from other people's experiences as they're dating. This lesson is something that has saved me a lot of trouble and is wisdom that is helping me navigate the shark infested waters that we call our modern dating pool. Ecclesiastes 7, verse 12 says, "Wisdom and money can get you almost anything, but only wisdom can save your life." A person's romantic interest is not necessarily a compliment. You shouldn't be too gassed or carried away because of interest alone. You should already be aware of your own beauty, your allure, and in that awareness, it should never shock you that another person would notice your good qualities and be moved to approach. I'm not saying be arrogant. It's okay to be flattered and to accept interest graciously, but don't let it carry you away in the beginning. It's important to pay attention to what drives that interest. The two factors I will mention today are, firstly, their motives, and secondly, the spirit that drives them. The first factor, motives, is more obvious. A motive is defined as something such as a need or a desire that causes a person to act. Why are they there? Why are they interested in you? Is it that they genuinely want to get to know you to see if you can build something? Do they just want to have sex with you? Are they bored and looking for company? Are you a dime and they want to show you off to their friends? Do you have a lot of money or a nice place to live and they need access to that? Do you have small children and they want to date you to gain access to them? Why are you interested in them? Take a step back from infatuation to think about the motives at play. The second factor, the spirit that drives them, ties into the first, but it goes beyond practical motivations and physical considerations into the unseen realm. I've learned that the seen and unseen realms hold hands. They operate with synergy and are rarely entirely mutually exclusive, so the spirit realm can drive people's motives. As an example, there may be times you come across people who seem obsessed with you. They are highly interested, consistent, and very infatuated. It can feel complimentary at first, especially if they fit the profile of something that you really desire. But if you were to look beyond the physical, there's something about their interest that isn't quite right. Even they themselves may not understand it, why they have such a strong desire to be around you, and typically to sleep with you. Within them, it's almost as if they don't sleep with you, they feel like they're going to go crazy. This may sound crazy in and of itself, or seem like an exaggeration, but there are people out there that experience this, that if they aren't able to sleep with a particular person, they don't know what to do with themselves. So they pull out all the stops. They study you and flatter you. Some people call it love bombing. They have their foot on the gas, no brakes, full speed ahead, because they are on a mission. They may not think about it from a spiritual lens, but there is something that is driving them beyond natural human emotion or infatuation to gain access to you in a deep way, usually sexually. And if, for whatever reason, you happen to fall for it and have sex with them, the second they get up from the bed, their interest is gone. They lose all interest, and oftentimes their interest will turn into disdain or disgust. These are the situations where, colloquially, a person will say that they were love bombed, fooled, or tricked by someone who lost complete interest and ghosted them after they had sex with them. Love bombing is defined as a manipulative relationship behavior in which someone overwhelms another person with excessive affection, attention, praise, gifts, or promises very early on, or intensely after conflict, not out of healthy love, but to gain control. create emotional dependence, or bypass boundaries. The strange thing is that the ghoster themselves may not even really understand why they feel the way they feel. In some instances, there are people who are awake spiritually and knowingly operate with dark powers. They do this sort of thing intentionally. These people may practice sex magic and understand how to benefit physically from the spiritual transference that happens during sex. In other cases, the person has open doors in their lives that allow them to be used by demonic spirits without it rising to a conscious level. In these instances, the individual may or may not be aware from a physical perspective that how they're feeling is excessive and that their behavior is harmful, but they are completely oblivious to the spirit realm and how it plays a role in how they operate romantically and sexually. They are unable to make the connection between the spirit realm and its effect on how they manage their thoughts and emotions. I still believe these people should be held accountable for their toxic patterns. You don't need to be someone who's spiritually awake to tell when you're emoting in a bizarre way. Unfortunately, this sort of scenario is actually not that strange, and a lot of people are heartbroken after having fallen victim. But typically, if you are someone who can see in the realm of the spirit, you'll notice that there is actually a spirit behind the person driving these sorts of interactions. They are guarding the maladaptive pattern. There was another personality, a person without a body, which is essentially what we call a spirit, that needed a body to accomplish a purpose. And when that purpose is fulfilled, the spirit is satisfied, even if only for a time, and the host disappears. The individual's interest was not human in origin. There was a spirit behind them that was interested in you for the sake of access. Sex is never just physical. It's always spiritual, and it's a way to gain access to the human spirit. So once the person slept with you, the mission as far as the spirit was concerned had been completed, and that's why the desire the person had for you faded. It was never theirs to begin with. It wasn't organic. This sort of scenario is different from more natural scenarios where, in the physical realm, people are sleeping together and lose interest for practical reasons. I'm not saying that sex isn't spiritual in those cases. I'm just saying that it's a different scenario than a spirit having had an assignment or a mission specifically targeting you and using sex as a means by which they can conquer your human spirit. It's not normal for people to have sex and get up apathetic or disgusted after several weeks or months of consistent or even obsessive bonding. It's not natural, so you have to question the origin. There's actually a story in the Bible that is exactly like this. In the book of 2 Samuel, chapter 13, verses 1 through 22, Amnon, the eldest son of King David, became consumed by an unhealthy obsession for his half-sister Tamar, so fixated on having sex with her that scripture says it tormented him. This obsession led him to scheme deceitfully, pretending to be ill so Tamar would come alone to care for him in his bedroom. When she did, Amnon ignored her firm refusals and her appeals to morality, law, and family honor, and he raped her. Immediately afterward, scriptures say his obsessive desire turned to hatred, and he cast her out in shame. Though King David was angered, he took no action, leaving Tamar publicly humiliated and permanently altered. Unfortunately, Tamar's rape wasn't just a personal tragedy. She actually ended up being collateral damage in the process of the destruction of the house of David, which had been prophesied long before. In 2 Samuel, the unraveling of David's house began with David's own sin, his adultery with Bathsheba, and the murder of Uriah. which led the prophet Nathan to declare that the sword would never depart from David's household, and that evil would arise from within his own family. That prophecy began to take flesh when Amnon raped Tamar, and David failed to punish him. Tamar's violation became the catalyst that awoke her brother Absalom's quiet rage towards Amnon and his father, King David. He carried the weight of his sister's unavenged suffering for years, and he eventually murdered Amnon as a result. Absalom's decision to murder Amnon ruined his relationship with David, and he then began positioning himself against David politically. Absalom's rebellion against his father fractured the kingdom, forced David into exile, resulted in Absalom's death, and marked the irreversible destabilization of David's house. Though Tamar herself faded from the narrative, her rape was not incidental, and neither was the origin of her rape. There was a spiritual consequence to David's adultery. His sin gave license to evil forces to operate within his bloodline. The mission of the destabilization of the house of David was assigned to a spirit. Amnon's obsession and Tamar's rape were some of the means by which that mission was brought about. If you'd like more examples, I'd suggest you read the story of Samson in the book of Judges, chapters 14 through 15, and study how the origin of his interest in a woman in Timnah, a Philistine woman, was said to be God's doing, permitted as a means by which to conquer the Philistines. I won't get into this story now for the sake of time, but I just offer it as another opportunity to understand how the spirit realm can have an influence over our desires and emotions. If we understand this, we are better equipped to pause to investigate the origin of people's desire when they express interest in us. This isn't a cause to be weird, paranoid, or hyper-spiritual, only a signal to remain aware. I don't make this video to judge people who have found themselves as victims in this sort of situation. I empathize with you. I only seek to shed light on the fact that it is happening, so that people can guard themselves with awareness as they move forward. Sometimes the boundaries that God gives us can seem oppressive, especially as it relates to sex. But if we take time to weigh things, down to the gritty details, we see the wisdom and protection in it. The Bible and its views on sexual discipline can seem archaic and condescending on the surface for people in this modern age who don't know God personally. But I've come to learn that the weight of spiritual realities don't discriminate based on time or culture. They are what they are, both for our good and for our detriment. It's either we study the truth beyond what we can see and pray for the grace to live according to it, or remain ignorant and reap the consequences.